More than any other, Barack Obama's presidency had a special significance to Africans. As he now prepares to vacate the White House, a new book examining the Obama years and Africa was recently launched in Washington. United States and Africa Relations, the Obama Presidency, is jointly published by AMIP News and the Africa Society. Here to talk about the book is Patricia Bain, President of the Africa Society, and Frederick Noma Addison, author and CEO AMIP News. I want to welcome both of you to Africa 54.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, up to this time, at this point, a lot has been said about Obama's legacy to Africa, but then we are now speaking in the context of this book. Patricia, what is it that this book really brings out that will make somebody perhaps want to consider it to see what Obama meant to the continent?
Well, we know that there's going to be a lot of discussion in subsequent years about what Obama has really done because of his significance to Africa, the continent, and his personal ties, and the fact that his presidency was historic. And so we wanted to have an objective record of telling the public this is what he has done. So this is a compilation of what the Obama administration has done vis-a-vis Africa. Their tremendous work on providing opportunity and creating economic improvement and development for the scores of people on the continent. It's a great compilation. It's a great read. We encourage everybody to get one.
Now, Fred, you went through the book. You wrote this book. So how, in a way, how do you detach yourself from the emotion, from the sentiment of having this one as having been a son of Africa in so many respects, and just being realistic about how much it did, say, as compared to George W. Bush?
Well, thank you very much. We approached it as a journalistic material. We know that the book will be critiqued and discussed. And so with my own journalism background, that's how we approached it. And between AMIP News and Africa Society, I do remember we had several tensions as to what was objective, what was fair, what was accurate, what was realistic, what would be offensive. Now, the president's legacy and the book revolves around four main pillars of the administration's engagement and strategy towards engaging Africa, and that was sparing economic growth, democracy and good governance, peace and security, and opportunity and development. So what we basically did was to track every important initiative along these four lines. And I'm pleased to say that between 2009 and January 2017, where he's getting ready to bow out, a lot of significant accomplishments were chalked.
And I mentioned George W. Bush. Many have always wanted to kind of compare because they kind of expected much more from President Obama. Now, in this book, would you, in a way, kind of address that issue, whether did he do much more? Did he build upon what President Bush had left? What is the assessment?
So the beauty of our book is it gives an objective assessment of what has been done. The president and his administration and his Africa agenda has achieved certain measurable things, which we have enumerated in the book. And then we leave enough of a margin for the reader to then judge and say, what does that mean? Because different things mean different, have impacted people differently. And so, we all know that legacy is something that is a continuum. It will be judged as we go. But we think that this is a good, objective, on record of what he has done.
Now, Fred, is this more of a book that would be of interest and appeal to African audiences, or is it a book that anybody who is interested in how the U.S. engaged with Africa during the Obama years would like to read?
The subject of international relations can be very heavy, and I'll reference what the production manager of the press that made this book communicated to me. Now, they're in Pennsylvania. He's somebody who prints books for a living. And I once asked him, whilst the work was in progress, I asked him, what is your personal assessment? What does this book mean to you? And he used the word fascinating to describe it. That caught my attention. Now, this is not somebody who is involved in African affairs. He has very little connection or interest in his day-to-day life with the African continent. But somehow, through the presentation, the creativity in the way it's presented, it made sense to him, and he connected with it. And he said things like, there's information in it that I could have never imagined that happened in the past 8 years. So to answer your question, this is a book that appeals to anybody who has the slightest interest in international affairs and in African affairs.
For a person who is in Africa, who reads this book, do you think they can appreciate what they experienced, what they saw, with what somebody in the United States, like us who are here, perhaps saw and understood about the U.S. policy towards Africa during the Obama years?
I think so. See, with the Obama administration's Africa agenda, I think that they did what I call structural changes. They looked at the U.S.-Africa relations and tried to strengthen those relationships by going about it more structurally. So I think when you read this book, you'll be able to see that while, you know, there wasn't a lot of money thrown at problems as in the past, this administration had a good, thorough look at what would it take to be better partners with the African continent. And it's that kind of dynamic that I really appreciate.
Okay. In just a few seconds, Fred, what is it, do you think, is a major takeaway from this?
I would highlight on the president's vision and understanding of the power of partnerships. His key initiatives, whether it's Feed the Future, whether it's the Power Africa, all focused on partnerships, working with people, working with African leaders to make things happen.
You know, thanks a lot to both of you, Ms. Spain, Frederick.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank
you so much for having us.